Right, these are orders for today's activity. We are now moving to Area H on the training area. Fighters have been pushed east of Horrow Road and have established a final defensive position where they intend to make their last stand. We are to be prepared to assault the enemy depth positions and provide fire support in order to destroy all enemy in the company area of operations. Intel reports that they will fight to the death.
On the banks of the picturesque River Cam stands one of England's oldest and grandest universities, Cambridge, founded in 1209 during the reign of bad King John. For 8 centuries, Cambridge University has been a magnet for great minds. Within the hallowed halls of its 31 independent colleges, with famous names like King's, Trinity, Peterhouse, and St. John's, Sir Isaac Newton pondered the laws of gravity, and Stephen Hawking plumbed the black holes of our universe. It has been home to 82 Nobel laureates and 15 British Prime Ministers. Tradition runs deep at Cambridge. Rowing is popular, so is punting on the River Cam, as is formal dining in the grand halls of the colleges. In a place steeped in academic excellence, where admission is offered to only the best, what is the most exclusive club on campus? It's the University Officers Training Corps. Dining with them tonight is a Canadian visitor on a mission.
It's a visit to get to the depths of their officer training within the university, to find out exactly what makes it so very successful.
Neville Boyd is the honorary colonel of a Toronto regiment, the Queen's York Rangers. He has come to England eager to learn about something the British have and that Canada discarded.
We lost it. We lost an extremely good modality for linking academia with the military, and I suppose the best word is the connection. The connection between the students, which reflect the general community and the public, and the military.
Neville Boyd's family came to Canada as refugees fleeing the Japanese invasion of Hong Kong and successfully set out to make a contribution to their new country. For his long career as a plastic surgeon specializing in burn treatment, he was awarded the Order of Canada. His sister, Adrienne Clarkson, is the former Governor General, and he is married to Senator Vivian Boyd, a former Chancellor of the University of Toronto. Now retired, Dr. Boyd continues to contribute. He believes we need to revive the tradition of the Officers Training Corps.
Bend your knees. Lift with the knees, not the back.
How wonderful it would be if we were able to bring back this spirit of contributing to the military and improving our military presence within the community, which is now being effectively done every day throughout the United Kingdom with these many, many centres that have officers training.
Go! Go! Let's go there! Let's go! 22 up! Good, well done, lads. Pick it up. Wait for the 2 real ones. Wait for the 2 real ones.
In Canada, the link between the university and the military was broken decades ago. Now a perception persists that the two are incompatible. But at universities throughout Great Britain, students are lining up to join the Officers Training Corps, or OTC.
The University of London Officer Training Corps, we had 1,200 students show an interest in joining us at the beginning of the academic year, and from there we whittled it down and took 205 students. So it's a selective process.
Captain Sasha Macy became involved with the OTC as a student at the University of Birmingham. Now working in the City of London for a consulting firm, she continues her connection with the OTC as a training officer.
Basically, my role is to train the first-year students who come along and join the OTC. 50% of them haven't had any military experience or exposure to the army before. They've moved up now from being complete brand new kids who haven't got a clue about how to wear their uniform or what kit to put in their pockets, to now being actually quite proficient. They can handle a weapon, they can fire blank rounds safely, they can use pyrotechnics, and they know the basic mechanics and tactics of how to do a section level attack and a platoon attack.
More than 200 Cambridge students are in the OTC, continuing a campus tradition that dates back to the era of Wellington and Napoleon. Emma Jude, 22, is studying veterinary medicine.
I joined the OTC in 2004, October 2004, in my second year at uni. I was a bit intimidated about it my first year because I don't come from a military background, but then heard friends how great it was and thought, yeah, second year, I'll give it a go. OTC is probably my main activity these days because vet has got quite takes up a lot of my time really. It's pretty much for me now just veterinary and OTC, although when I was younger and had more free time and I was pre-clinical, I was playing other sports and rugby, for example, like that, but now it's sort of my main interest really, and because of the variety within it, I don't get bored. I can take on different roles within OTC and do different adventurous training, so it's kind of having more than one hobby really, but yeah, it's very important to me.
More than 4,500 students are enrolled in the Officers Training Corps at over 100 British universities. They train at 19 regional OTC units, like the one at Cambridge.
With OTC, really, I've always been involved in outdoor activities and outdoor sports, but never really considered the military. But coming to OTC at the Careers Fair and Freshers Fair and just seeing how enthusiastic everyone was about it, it seemed to be quite a good progression from being able to carry on with what I originally enjoyed and having an understanding about the military as well.
Ed Dickens is a third-year geography student at Peterhouse, the oldest college at Cambridge. Unlike many, he is planning a career in the military.
I'm probably the old one out in terms of OTC membership, and that my father's in the military and I've grown up with the army, and it's something I've always wanted to do as a career, and it was a logical follow-on from cadets at school, so I knew about OTC before I even came to university. I live in a very military town in Wiltshire, and so I've got used to seeing people around in uniform. When I was young, my father used to come home in uniform, and I just grew interested in it because I was exposed to it, and the more I learnt about it, the more an army career attracted me.
You're looking at an organisation that gives them the opportunity to get out and about and do really cool stuff. You've got military training on the weekends. It's different, it's unusual. You're getting out of your comfort zone of living in your hall accommodation and actually achieving something in the weekends. That's the first thing. Secondly, there's so many opportunities to go and do fantastic stuff. If you want to learn how to ski or go scuba diving, you're going to have to pay to belong to the skiing club. You're going to have to pay to belong to the diving club. Here, it's all on for you. You sign up, you have a go, you pay a nominal amount, and you get paid during that time when you're learning to ski. So your quid's in. And I think probably the third reason why people join is the fact that it's an amazing social life.
4, 3, 2, 1,
At weekend exercises such as this one run by the Royal Corps of Signals, OTC units learn military skills in a competitive environment.
I think within the OTC, what I like best is, as I said, just the physical, the mental challenge, pushing yourself to the limits. And I did, as I said, a lot of sport back at school, and I did it to quite a high level, and I'm just used to sort of feeling the best sense of achievement when I'm sort of pushing myself the hardest, and if I don't do that, then I just don't feel that sense of achievement. And within OTC I can push myself as hard as I want, as sleep deprivation and all sorts of challenges that, although seem pretty horrific, I sort of need to feel fulfilled, as it were.
Get the blue and the white and the blue and the white, okay?
Right, okay.
Separate the blue and the blue. Go together.
Participants must commit to 1 evening a week and 2 weekends a month, and they are paid for their time.
Let me see. No.
Membership of the OTC is definitely a club, but it's so much more than that as well. It's not simply something which you buy a t-shirt for, turn up once a week and do it on an ad hoc basis. It really is something that once you get involved in, it becomes a part of your life.
It certainly developed me as an individual. Some of the things I've gone through, my second term at university, for example, fresh 18-year-old, I found myself on Spree X in freezing conditions with a severe risk of hypothermia, in charge of 20 people running a river crossing and then navigating them back to the harbour location. And that was just in my second term at university, at the stage that most of my peers in college didn't really know their way around Cambridge.
I think my family, my mum in particular, was quite surprised when I joined, and I think she takes quite a lot of delight in telling people she's got 2 sons rather than 1 daughter and 1 son when I tell her what I've done.
You need to get down on your bellies.
OTC teaches skills that have value beyond military life. Cadets learn how to communicate effectively and to work as a team.
I think OTC takes people, and it takes people that you look at them and you think they're not going to be a good leader. And I think I was the same when my first training weekend. I hadn't done any military experience, so I hadn't done cadets or anything like that, and people were expecting me to crawl on my belly through gorse bushes, and you just think, what are they thinking? And and I don't want to do this, and you get very demoralised. But then as you start to be given responsibility, they start to give you a little bit of leadership, a little bit of responsibility, and you want to keep that respect. As soon as people believe in you, you don't want to let them down.
Stay locked there.
We use infantry as our template to teach the students command and leadership.
Come on, you two, let's go!
When you put somebody in a position where they're in charge of 25 people, they've got to command them, they've got to control them, they've got to know what they're doing to be able to carry out the mission that they've been given by their commander. Using that platform, the infantry model, it's the best way to teach these students leadership.
You two fill in between these two. Come on, Aitor, let's move!
No, you want some?
Keep firing, you scum! Again! Get
Building leadership, responsibility, and initiative are some of the benefits of the OTC experience, along with having fun.
I'd never actually anticipated gaining these kind of skills that look really good for employers. That was never my primary intention from joining the OTC. It was just to go, to be honest, to go on the adventures training trips that I thought were a fantastic opportunity.
When I joined the OTC, I just wanted to have a bit of fun, do a bit of army training at the weekends, a bit of skiing maybe, and really didn't think that it would become such a big part of my life, and that I would in fact get as much out of it as I have. But once you do join and you do see the range of opportunities that are there, your world's your oyster, and as long as you put yourself forward and take those opportunities, you can get a massive amount out of it.
It's dawn in the English countryside. Over the past 48 hours, these soldiers have had little sleep. They've been up all night preparing for the final assault of a training exercise that has lasted all weekend. There is little to distinguish them from a regular force of the British Army, but these are university students, officer cadets of the Officers Training Corps. As the platoons gather for their final orders, they are watched by an impressed Dr. Neville Boyd.
they're doing something right to keep the students' interest in this, because, as I say, I've seen them in the field training in the cold, under miserable circumstances, and yet they aspire to retain their relationship with the military.
Dr. Boyd is a new recruit himself. In 2007, he became the honorary colonel of the Queen's York Rangers, Canada's oldest militia regiment.
I had no idea what an honorary was. But I thought this would be a wonderful new venture, because I do want to contribute in some way.
Although he had never been involved with the armed forces before, Dr. Boyd has always had a belief in the importance of a military connection with the community. Now he uses his position as honorary colonel to promote those ties.
I think that it is definitely a benefit for every citizen to know something about the military. During my time as honorary colonel, we meet with all the other honoraries, and one of the things that's been bantered about quite frequently is the concept of COTC, Canadian Officers Training Corps. I knew it was something that was highly revered by those who went through the experience of COTC. And I knew that it was an extremely viable entity up to about the late 60s, 68 or so, when, because of military attrition due to funding, everything fell by the board and the COTC went. We lost it.
As an honorary colonel, Dr. Boyd has come to Cambridge to find out about the success of the OTC, to explore how students, the school, and the military coexist.
It is difficult because if you make a commitment, then there is quite a lot of time that has to go into it. But then again, you've also got, I mean, in Cambridge there are so many opportunities, like rowing. Right now, the rowers probably put in more time commitment than I do. So at the end of the day, you've got to balance it out, and obviously the degree comes first, but if you're able to do that, then that's fantastic. And I am finding it's hard, but I'm able to do it at the moment. So.
My director of studies and my tutor know, and they're very supportive actually. I think a lot of people don't want to tell them because they're afraid that they'll find out about the extracurricular commitments and be afraid that it will impede their work.
Yeah, I do find no conflict. To be honest, sometimes I'm not probably the most diligent of students. It's just about balance.
To help maintain the balance, there are military education committees, or MECs. They are made up of academics and military personnel who support the mission of the OTC. These committees oversee the programs and their students.
I'm pleased to say that academic progress is not usually an issue. I haven't heard it raised more than once in my whole time in Cambridge.
As an OTC graduate herself, Jennifer Rigby is a strong supporter of the program. She is the bursar at Churchill College and is also the acting chair of the Cambridge Military Education Committee.
The Military Education Committee is a statutory committee of the university, which means that it absolutely is maintained by the university. And it includes both representatives of the colleges, bursars and senior tutors who head up the academic side of the colleges. And we have the unit commanders for the Air Squadron, the Royal Naval Unit and the OTC attending that committee. They report to the committee, and particularly we use it as a place where we can discuss issues relating to the relationship between students taking part in the units themselves, their future careers and academic progress.
As the current master of Peterhouse, Lord David Wilson has a vested interest in the success of his students.
This is the smallest of all the Cambridge colleges. We've got a total of just about 400 undergraduates and graduate students, and you have a group of some of the brightest, nicest, most articulate, most lively people you could find in this country. I can guess that there may be some academics who would say, well, how much time are they spending on their military activities as students? But frankly, they'd say exactly the same about somebody rowing, or somebody playing rugby, or somebody playing golf for the university. All those are time-consuming.
Because I think that actually taking part in the OTC helps people manage their time better. They are forced to manage their time, and within the time they don't spend a lot of time training. The training commitment is relatively light, but the fact that they have some time commitment to the OTC means they have to work properly on their academic work within fixed periods of time. That in itself is useful training.
I think the OTC has definitely helped me manage my time better and have a sense of urgency in everything I do. I can manage to get things done a lot quicker than other people without faffing around and wasting time on Facebook or whatever else people do. But yeah, without that time I just have to prioritise. It's not really an option for me not to, otherwise I just wouldn't survive in Cambridge.
Change! Switch on! Switch on! Stop thinking about what you're doing! No, change!
Professor Donald Ritchie is National Chairman of the Council of Military Education Committees.
They are students, but they become cadets. And of course, the OTC will always insist that a student puts their studies first and the cadet work is second.
7! Work together as a team, guys, once we all work together.
When you see, as I have seen at close quarters over many years, the product that comes out of this, in terms of someone who, in my view, is head and shoulders in all sorts of qualities above an average student who's come out of an undergraduate course, then one begins to see the benefits of that type of training to society.
Backside, 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 up and away.
What I look at it as is one of the ways, one amongst several, where students can realize their own potential. And, you know, we have a number of students who are members of the OTC, and they make full use of their time there. They do a huge number of things that they couldn't do in other ways: adventure training, learning leadership, learning something about command, something about being in a disciplined organization.
This area is secure. However, if we are attacked,
we're not looking for people who want to join the army 110%. We're looking for people who show potential in leadership skills and people who are going to be the leaders of business in 10 to 20 years' time. Maybe go into politics and go down that sort of line, and it's very much a process for us to educate them in what the army's all about. It's a very quick snapshot in the 3 years of doing ATC, of realising what the army's about, how it works, why it works the way it does.
The British military has always understood that a clear and visible presence in the community is crucial in maintaining its connection to society. But are university campuses an appropriate place for a military presence?
I believe that the OTC performs a very valuable role in linking together different elements of the university and the different elements of the military. It re-emphasises the fact that the military are here and around the place and just a national institution and part of the place, not extraordinary. And I think particularly with diminishing military forces around the country, it's important that people see the military as being part of normal life and part of normal activity, be it academic activity, working activity.
I got no sense at Cambridge that there are people who are opposed to having those from the military coming here to study, or indeed having our undergraduates doing military training.
In Canada, the idea of a military presence on campus has at times sparked controversy. In the UK, it's an accepted part of campus life.
As for the military coming here, that's military officers coming here, I think most people would say we're going to influence them more than they're going to influence us. Certainly nobody would ever think that the military were going to take over the university. They would believe that bringing people here is helpful to them, helpful for inducing into the military a sense of looking at the world in an overall way, looking at it historically, having a real understanding of the world, which is beneficial to the military, beneficial to the country as a whole, and frankly it's beneficial to the university to have those people here.
OTC provides a unique link, one that gives students and citizens a connection to a national institution.
I think there's real concern in this country at the moment that the military is a national institution, but people are unaware of what it does. And the only thing they see on the news and the media, of course, is the bad news, wars. There's a real attempt, I think, through the OTCs to actually bring more people in closer contact with the military. And I think it works.
Participants may never become soldiers, but the lessons they learn live on in the civilian world.
We're being educated about the military. We're learning that it's not just, you know, whatever stigma there is that's attached to it, and that is incredibly beneficial for society, I think, because you know, at the end of the day, the military will exist, and it will always exist, and having not just a positive understanding, but a proper, in-depth understanding of what it does and what it stands for, I don't think the significance of that can be overestimated.
I think OTCs do benefit society, even if the people that have gone through OTC decide not to join the army. In their everyday walk of life, I think they're going to have an understanding of the army, and even if you're not pro-war or anything like that, I think unfortunately in this day and age it's a necessity to have an army. Every country needs one, and I think if everyone can have a slight understanding about what the army, the hardships they have to do, we'll be a bit more aware and will support our troops a bit better.
In my opinion, irrespective of whether people stay on with a military career, be it reserve or regular, after the OTC, it's beneficial to have people in society who have an understanding of the military and who have an understanding of the work that the army does. I'd also say that in terms of the ethos that the OTC fosters in you, in terms of your camaraderie, your trust that you have in others, and how you'll be willing sort of to have a get up and go attitude about life is beneficial not just to society but to individual as well.
So when I look at an OTC cadet, and I say to my wife sometimes, you know, I look at these young men and these young women, and there are none of them who I wouldn't be proud to have as one of my sons or daughters, and that is actually an important point in my view.
There is a deep affection in the UK for its customs and its military traditions. This comes from an understanding of what the military means to society, its history and its relevance.
I think what prompted me to join the OTC was probably, it's one of those classic white middle class, middle England childhoods where, you know, you're brought up to want to put something back in.
Chris Histed is the founder of a successful web-based business and a former OTC graduate.
When I got to university, it seemed the natural thing to do to think about public service in some way. This was a fun way of doing it. You got paid. You got to get a good uniform. You got paid to go skiing. You know, that's pretty good stuff. There were loads of fun benefits, which were probably one of the main attractants.
Right, this stand is based upon a scenario which is effectively you're on the run and it's combat survival. Okay, time is short. Look to your right. Staff Sergeant McGoo is on the run. Go catch him.
I thought that it was a brilliant structure in which to remain physically fit, to learn some new skills, to get out in the fresh air, and also I grew very fond of the way of doing things in the military way. There's the military organisation, the thought processes, and that's really attracted me and kept me in the combined cadet force.
Come on, get a move on. Let's get some points going on the table.
Just two small strips that I can tie around my feet.
I had no connections with the military whatsoever. I don't come from a military family, so really it was a new experience, and ever since then it encouraged me to participate more and more in the army, and in fact I joined the Royal Green Jackets and served for 6 years for Queen and Country, all because of the Officer Training Corps.
Little piglet comes along there, trips the tripwire. You come along, get him out, eat him. Lovely. You want to get some weapons to the enemy country, you're like, get away! and they have their rifle and they give you fucked. Okay, there's not a lot for you.
One develops a lot of very close friendships and camaraderie through the training of the Officer Training Corps. Certainly when I was leading the training at Oxford University Officer Training Corps, we believed very strongly in the work hard, play hard ethos.
There's a very small little route there, a tiny obstacle course that Magoo's just running through now. The team captain's going to race through as fast as he can, and you have to shoot your target with a condom. Nice.
The ranks of OTC graduates are all full of high achievers who say their training contributed to their success.
On the very first day, you know, when you're being selected for the Officer Training Corps, and even in that selection process, you have to work in a team environment and complete command tasks. That goes right through the Officer Training Corps, and it's very important that you work as a team member as well as a leader of a team. And in seeing that, you know, repeating that experience over and over again, anyone that's slightly unconfident or a little bit shy in their abilities or doesn't believe in themselves enough to lead a team, you simply can't hide in the Army or the Officer Training Corps. You have to do it.
I think if you look at the part-time career that an OTC period of time is, you see a set of training which forces you to behave in certain ways. It's very methodical, it's quite indoctrinational sometimes, but you learn patterns of behaviour, patterns of doing things which deliver results. And that training has been developed over 200 years, and it's been proven to work.
University is interesting that it teaches you how to think. I mean, that's what university is really all about. It's stepping you into another dimension. Officer Training Corps not only builds on that, but it also builds on your own confidence to lead.
Emma, if you stay with me, and we'll set the projector.
It is a convergence of relevant training with exceptional students.
The Officer Training Corps is very fortunate in its able to recruit from some of the most dynamic, intelligent individuals that we have in society. During my time as one of the training officers at Oxford University Officer Training Corps, I was able to sample that firsthand for myself. I found that I could teach in a week what I could teach my territorial soldiers in over the whole of the training year, and such was the academic ability, such was their drive and their enthusiasm to learn. I could take them to really quite a high level of soldiering ability in a very, very short period of time.
My academic career ended with a lowly third-class degree in physics and computer science. And I've never used one drop of that since. And I believe a very large amount of my success now as a business person in the UK has been driven by what I learnt at the OTC 20 years ago. I mean, it's maybe bizarre to say that. What I learnt from my academic degree has got no comparison to the value I learnt from the OTC stuff as a business person.
The experience also forges deep relationships and strong connections, which graduates carry with them for the rest of their lives.
Although it doesn't necessarily open the doors to the city for you like it may have done in the past, it does build lifelong bonds with people who inevitably can help you to push the door open a little bit. I, for instance, met my wife in the Officer Training Corps, so I'm very grateful for that. But the connection and the network that you get and the bonds you make in the Officer Training Corps, again, for me, have created relationships and friendships that are stronger and more important to me than those I made at university.
The student who escorted me to a dinner on Saturday night, James Danvers, was very interesting because he's just received a really good job offer from somebody in the City of London. There's fierce competition for those job opportunities, and he said he happened to see the notes from the interviewer who was interviewing him for the job, and he'd highlighted two things, one of which was the fact that he'd been in the OTC, and the other was that he'd been at Cambridge. The combination of the two is magic.
There is a basic recognition that the military is both important and relevant to British society, and an appreciation that if society has a military, then that society needs to understand and take responsibility for it.
The United Kingdom has a very good system of continuing the military presence within the public, the acknowledgement of the fact that they have a system that can produce top-notch officers to produce good top-notch soldiering.
Dr. Poy sought out Professor Christian Gustafson, who has academic and military experience in both the UK and Canada.
Here in Cambridge, I did my PhD at Downing College. Previous to coming here, I was a regular Army officer in Canada and then a Reserve Army officer in Canada in the South Alberta Light Horse. While doing my PhD here, I was attached as a Canadian officer to the Cambridge University Officer Training Corps. What's special about a Cambridge education? Well, at all levels, it's a much more personal education. I think it's also part of who they select to get an education here. Undergraduates especially are chosen very carefully after interview. They don't just want a brain. They want a brain who can leave the classroom, play a game of rugby, put on a suit and have a glass of wine with a professor at a formal function. And what you end up with is a very well-educated, very well-rounded person. The military looks at the body of students coming out of here and sees future opinion formers, people who are going to be in business, people who are going to be in government, people who are going to be influential. And so it wants to take those people and educate them that the military is in fact a pretty decent thing. And that's to a certain extent, the aims of the OTCs.
A similar program once existed on Canadian campuses, the Canadian Officer Training Corps, but it was cancelled in 1968. The COTC was in fact based on the British model.
There were officer training corps in Canada, but through the 60s and 70s, through that period of especially of campus radicalism in Canada, the military was essentially withdrawn from the campus and in many cases withdrawn from public life altogether. And I think it's a fight to get that back.
Dr. Gustafson has written about the benefits Canada would get from the re-establishment of the COTC.
I think the OTCs are a great way of training young officers. Second, that ambassadorial role of showing the public that the military is not a bad thing, of making the public familiar with the military is something that can be really achieved very well with an officer training corps, and so could be very, very useful for the Canadian forces.
In Britain, the military also values the connection with the community, represented by the university.
The British Army is big on what they call the army in society. Unfortunately, in modern society, because of the way we've built our armies over the last 50 years, especially since the Second World War, governments have tried to a certain extent to isolate the military from society. Why officer training corps are important is that they are to take people getting university educations and impress them with the nature of the military as a public institution that works for them and for their society.
Major General Andrew Farquhar sees the support of the community as a fundamental requirement.
To us in the military, we see ourselves entirely reliant on support from the nation. And as we say in doctrinal terms of the military, our centre of gravity is having that support from every single person, ideally, in the nation. Because if we don't get that, politically and militarily, we could not function.
I think the officer training corps is a very effective way of removing the barbed wire from around the military. I think a lot of people see that the military is something that happens behind barriers and on training areas that people aren't allowed onto. I think this allows ordinary individuals at a very sort of key stage in their life, get exposure to the officer training corps, get exposure to the military.
I think we can be very proud in Britain of our military heritage. Everybody is aware of the huge roles that we've played in previous campaigns. But that understanding can only exist as long as there is that knowledge in the mind's eye.
The key to the UK system is that it has support from both the universities and the military. This support spills out into society as OTC graduates enter the working world.
What we are doing within the University Officer Training course is we are planting that seed of understanding which grows, we hope, quite positively as somebody goes through their normal civilian life, and it spreads the word, and hopefully they will self-seed, if you like, through their careers, through their families, through the wider society they talk to. So to us, the OTCs are a vital tool, but fundamentally they're to shape the understanding and the support of the nation to the Army.
But for current OTC cadets, there is a more immediate concern: getting through a challenging program. Each year, the ultimate test for select members is the Cambrian Patrol, viewed internationally as one of the toughest of military competitions anywhere.
Cambridge OTC has just, again, got a gold medal in something called the Cambrian Challenge. And the Cambrian Challenge is actually a challenge open to all regular Army units as well. And there are only a limited number of gold medals awarded. This year's team from Cambridge OTC had a woman in it for the first time, and they got a gold.
I did the Cambrian competition recently, which is an 8-man infantry patrol competition where you have to walk for about 52 hours. You get about an hour and a half sleep during it. You're carrying a Bergen weighing up to about 40 kilograms of weight, and it's over in the Welsh Brecon Beacon, so it's hilly terrain. And it's broken down into two phases. So phase 1, you're going to do a close target recce or reconnaissance on an enemy position. So you're really quite stealthy and try and gather as much information on the enemy as possible. And then in phase 2, we do various stands. We had a mine clearance stand, and they were actually using live amputees. So when we got to the stand, which we were told was a minefield area, and we prodded and cleared mines up to the casualty, and when we extracted them, their leg was actually left there, and fake blood was being squirted out. And being team medic in the group, I had to deal with the situation. And we had various other stands. We had to do attacks at night, and we had live fire going above our heads. We had to carry grenade launchers up a hill. We had to crawl through tunnels. Also had to do a river crossing, and so it's obviously about trying to keep all your kit dry and just being able to carry on after you're freezing cold and soaking wet, and knowing you've got like another 10 hours to walk really until you finish. So it was just an incredible experience. I'm not going to say I loved it at the time, but afterwards I was on such a high about it, and I'd really recommend that to everyone, to be honest.
The joy of this competition is that, yes, you compete with other teams, but you don't compete against other teams. You compete against a standard. And so it gives individuals within the University Officer Training Corps who will become normal members of society a real opportunity to take part in a world-class military competition, which many overseas nations partake in as well, and to prove their worth as a small, united, selfless team. And for Cambridge University Officer Training Corps to win gold medals 2 years running, for the last 2 years they've entered, to beat the standard, to beat the terrain, to beat, if you like, the competition setters, has been a really significant achievement.
A great university like Cambridge demands excellence from its students, and so does the OTC. Like the university, many apply, but few are accepted, and its members are expected to learn, engage, and perform, especially during training.
Go, go, go!
Today we are on Thetford training area, which is about 2.5 hours drive northeast of London.
Do you know where they are? Right, has she got a magazine? They left Cambridge about 11 o'clock on Friday evening, having had their last sleep probably Thursday night, Friday morning. They've been in the field constantly since then. Pick it up before the enemy gets hold of you and back into cover. That's one each. So the fatigue level now on Sunday morning is actually quite high. I should think most of them have had a couple of hours sleep at best all weekend. So what are you you're going to do now, girls, you're going to look to see if there's any enemy that tries to make an escape.
Basically, we have 120 students here this weekend, and it's predominantly first-year students. They're broken down into 3 platoons. The commanders of the platoons are third-year cadets.
Assault is going in there.
So they're really good. They know exactly what they're doing, and they're commanding 3 sections of approximately 8 to 10 soldiers. Each one of those sections will be commanded by a third-year student, and the soldiers within the section will be the first years. So they're the soldiers learning the basics. So this weekend we're really testing the commanders as well as the junior soldiers in, you know, the work they've done so far.
Where we are at the moment is well, it's the end of a very long weekend, and it's called Spring X. It's the culmination of the Cambridge University Officer Training Corps this term, and it's an opportunity to bring all the different wings together and use their expertise to overcome a particular scenario.
It is the end of term, and the cadets have come through a demanding year. They have been taught to work together and have developed the types of bonds that can only be forged through adversity.
I think my lasting friendship since my time at university were the people I knew in the OTC, and I think that experience is shared by other people. Being in adversity with people under difficult circumstances, cold and wet and miserable for a while, and then going to the bar with them afterwards and having a drink, or just walking home with them afterwards, they remain your friends for life.
I joined OTC originally because of the opportunity to go out and do stuff with like-minded people. What I didn't realise was the amount of friends I was going to make doing that. And you instantly make friends because you're put into such strange situations. One minute you're rolling around in the mud and freezing cold, and the next minute you're having a very smart party at a regimental dinner and acknowledging old traditions, and it brings you all together.
General Ridgway, Emma Jude.
The definitive social event of the Cambridge OTC is the annual dinner held in the Great Hall of St. John's College.
Hosting's not just a responsibility of
It is part of the training, an evening where students are expected to adhere to all of the formalities and traditions associated with a full regimental dinner. But for many, it is a first requiring a briefing on the finer points of formal etiquette.
15 minutes.
This is not your usual Saturday night campus party.
On arrival at the table, remain standing. Grace will be said, and then when the top table begins to sit, you may sit down, okay?
Last weekend was the annual dinner, and that is our annual event where we will invite those that have supported us, helped us, and indeed will help us in the future. So it's a mixture of the chain of command, it's a mixture of other regular army units that we can't operate without, and it's also the local influential individuals that we need to influence as a military in order to secure their commitment to allow our own students to be released to come and join us.
We are helping or saying thank you to a lot of people who've given us an immense amount of support this evening over the year. So show off, because that's what it's all about. We're showing these people what this organisation is, and you are the most important elements of it.
The dinner is a celebration given for those who support the OTC, an opportunity to meet and socialize with the cadets. Each guest is paired up with a student who will be their escort and host for the evening.
Many Cambridge societies have annual dinners, and the Cambridge University Officer Training Corps annual dinner is probably the ultimate annual dinner as far as I'm concerned. There's not many where you can claim to host guests as distinguished as we've been able to, and the location's quite magnificent as well. And I think that's just the pinnacle of the social side of our activities. Obviously very different to this one extreme to the other, but I think that's almost what the ATC is about, providing you with an experience of extremes.
But the students themselves, what do they get out of it? Well, When they're sat next to Lord or Lady or Dame, or indeed just plain Mister, they're hosting. And that's part of the mission. Our mission through leadership and personal development involves not only military training and adventurous training, but an important aspect of it is the social life. And it's great if you can go to a party and enjoy yourself on your own, or within a group, but when you put it together and you've got to host someone for the aims of the unit and the collective good of us all, it's a valuable lesson in life.
One of the main ways in which the OTC has broadened my horizons has really been through just the range of people you get to meet, and just people whom you wouldn't normally, people outside of my college, outside of my university and outside of my degree. And by meeting people who do have that breadth and who have a range of opinions and a range of experiences, you really do get sort of a fuller and wider ranging friendship group.
If you would have seen them when I managed to attract them to join the OTC in October, 106 new kids, fresh from home, starting university life, the difference only a few months makes is just incredible. So yes, I'm proud of them.
The Queen.
The OTC prepares students for life. Its graduates learn skills that help make them a success in civilian society. They also develop a crucial understanding of what their military is all about, and come away with a deep respect for its tradition of service to Queen and country.
There were many, many great things. There were many, many bad things. Getting up at 3 in the morning, it's raining, it's muddy, it's cold, you know, you ache like anything. That was bad. However, you know, by the end of the day, you'd really enjoyed yourself. 3 years of that gave you a great sense of affinity and fraternity with your friends who went through the same things. It gave you so many fond memories. So ever since, you have a fondness for people who do that sort of thing, and you want to do good. It makes you want to put something back in. It's difficult to describe, but it's overwhelmingly positive. It gets into your soul.
I really encourage us to bring back a system where we will encourage the youth of our country, the citizens of our country, look at the military as a very necessary entity. And it is character building, it is nation building, it's building everything that I think Canada stands for.